Pressure politics, if used wisely, can be a powerful tool. A case in point is Sri Lanka. In April last year, the country introduced a new rule. All Wuhan virus victims would be cremated, no burials. There was no scientific explanation for this rule. A few Buddhist monks claimed that burying the victims would contaminate the ground, and the government agreed. It's a classic case of appeasement politics, but they probably did not anticipate the backlash. Rights groups and community leaders were appalled. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation expressed concern Muslims on the island were being denied dignity in death. In December, 19 bodies were forcefully cremated, including that of a baby. The world community turned on Colombo. The Lankan government had backed itself into a corner. Cut to present day, the order has been revoked. No more forced cremations. Muslim citizens are free to bury their relatives. The pressure campaign worked. But there's more to this story than activism. Sri Lanka is facing a stern test at the United Nations Human Rights Council. There's a new resolution doing the rounds, one that slams the country for its dismal reconciliation efforts. It's been 12 years since the civil war ended. The Tamils are still awaiting justice. Far from punishing the war criminals, the government is in fact rewarding them. Several former generals accused of war crimes have been appointed to government jobs. Now, to avoid being indicted at the United Nations, Sri Lanka needs help. It needs to gather enough votes to kill this resolution. By reversing the burial ban, Colombo is wooing Islamic nations, many of whom have a seat at the council. So while the global outcry definitely helped, political convenience also played a part. And here's another reason why we cannot call this a change of heart. The Lankan government is considering a controversial law, one that would ban burqas in public. The cabinet has been consulted, and with their permission, this proposal could make its way to the parliament. It's one step forward, two steps back. Sri Lanka's justification for the burqa ban is a time-tested one. National security. They insist it has nothing to do with targeting the Muslim community. This has become the norm under President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's stigmatization as state policy. While the government drums up anti-minority sentiment, it seems oblivious to real issues, like China's expanding debt trap. Sri Lanka's finances are in a shambles. The treasury is almost drained. Sri Lanka's solution is to borrow from China. The country is seeking $2.2 billion from Chinese banks. We've said this many times before. Borrowing from China is never a good idea. It invariably ends with Beijing taking over strategic assets. Sri Lanka should know this more than anyone else, because it's happened to them already. The Hambantota fiasco. China holds a 99-year lease on the strategic port. And if reports are true, there is an option to extend it by another 99 years. Colombo wants to renegotiate the deal, but Beijing is not interested. Every time there's a new project in Sri Lanka, Chinese companies are first off the block. They secure contracts with exorbitant bids and set up strategic Chinese presence all over the island. This is exactly what's happening in northern Sri Lanka. 3 islands are being developed as clean energy hubs. The contracts have been given to Chinese firms. But here's what's interesting. These islands are just 48 kilometers from mainland India. How convenient that China's strategic and economic interests converge so seamlessly. Right now, Sri Lanka finds itself in a vulnerable spot. It needs diplomatic backing at the United Nations and financial support to keep the country running. It's not an ideal situation for any sovereign nation. But then again, that's where misplaced priorities get you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.